Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is of the 2019 film directed by Lee Won-tae, The Cop, the Gangster and the Devil. This is a lovely deluxe edition which has a nice thick book of the storyboards essentially. And bizarrely you also get the film, which is quite handy. It stars Ma Dong-seok, who I've butchered his name obviously, who has become one of the major stars in Korea ever since Train to Busan. There's just a ton of Korean action crime films that he's in. It also stars Kim Sun-kyu, again apologies for any Korean watchers, and Moo-yul Kim, and it's just another example of why Korean cinema is amongst the best cinema in the business at the moment, because it is completely generic. It is pretty much really predictable, but it's executed so well, it flies by, it's so good from a technical standpoint, it looks gorgeous, that you don't actually mind that you've kind of seen it all before and it's generic. And that's kind of why Korean cinema is so good, that even their bog standard commercial crime thriller films are just fantastic. This is absolutely ripe for an American remake, with perhaps Russell Crowe as the gangster, Ryan Gosling as the cop. I don't know, Elias Koteas is probably a bit old to play the devil, or the serial killer. But something like that. Obviously the violence would be toned down. Russell Crowe's gangster wouldn't be quite as harsh as Ma Dong's gangster, who is quite severe with some people. It's the story of, strangely enough, a rough and tumble cop, which we pretty much see in just about every Korean crime thriller. He doesn't play by the rules, and he's obsessed with getting this head of the Zeus gang, Dong Ma's character, who is introduced to us by punching a punch bag, but then we later see that it was somebody actually in the punch bag. You know, he does some freelance dentistry in somebody without anaesthetic. You know, he uses his fists rather than having a conversation with somebody. But again, the cop is of course not much that better than he is, because again he tends to have outbursts and violence as a way of expressing himself as well. It's a film about men who pretty much express themselves through violence. Again, something that we've seen 10,000 times before. And then we have the third strand where people are being stabbed to death randomly. There's no pattern, but obviously the cop has a hunch that there is a pattern, that it's a serial killer, and it just so happens that the serial killer tries to kill the gang boss, who he doesn't succeed. He puts him in hospital. Again, there's a subplot with, you know, a turf war, and obviously the gang boss's lieutenant immediately thinks it's the other guy that started it, and then there's revenge, and obviously there's wonderful action scenes of people beating each other up quite a lot. And it turns out that both the gangster and cop form an uneasy coalition to try and find the serial killer. Again, fairly bog standard, fairly generic, but it's just so well done. It's about 110 minutes. It absolutely flies by, which is always a good sign. The acting is wonderful. Yes, you could argue this gang boss who pretty much erupts when anybody even interrupts him, doesn't mind the fact that the cop, will come in and interrupt him and punch him in the face to get his attention. You put that to the one side. Obviously, there's lovely scenes when they're all out drinking and they're talking about, the fact there's not that much difference between the two of them. They're both in gangs, the police and the criminals. The guy who plays the serial killer, Kim Sun Kyu, which again won't be his real name, I've butchered it. He gives a really good performance, and it's nice that we don't get an explanation of why he does it. He just gets off on killing people. There's no backstory, there's no flashbacks to his childhood, which no doubt if it did get an American remake it would have that. Because the American remake would soften the gangster, and it would explain the serial killer to us about why he's doing it. You'd probably have a big long monologue about why he's doing it in his childhood. There's also a really nice moment where there's a scene where you think you've seen the serial killer, but it's in a medium shot, so you're not quite sure. Whereas again, if it got remade, they would punch in a close-up of the serial killer, so the audience would definitely know he was there. So even although, Korean cinema is at its most mainstream, at its most by the numbers, it's still intelligent, and it still doesn't insult the audience, and it's so well made. Again, I still haven't seen a Korean film that doesn't look beautiful. It's colourful. There's a wonderful scene later on in the film where they're hunting the killer down, and the gangsters running through this karaoke bar, and there's such vivid colours. The violence is strong. I would say it's on a kind of similar level to Kim Ji-woon's I Saw the Devil. So if you're not a fan of strong violence, I would maybe give it a miss. And obviously it's all knives pretty much. There's no guns in this one, which is refreshing, because quite a lot of films it's all just guns, whereas this is knives, which is more intimate. Yeah, I mean, this is not high art. This film will not change your life, but you will enjoy it and you'll have a great time with it, I think. Because like I said, it's 110 minutes, flies by, which is always a good sign. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it, because it's just another wonderful Korean film that, like I said, is mainstream. I did a random review of Veteran, which is lighter in tone, but again, it's another on the edge cop who doesn't play by the rules, going after a crime boss. The Master I did a review of, with Byung Lee. I did a random review of Thieves, which again, completely generic, completely by the numbers, but beautifully shot, beautifully acted, beautifully constructed, and just so much fun. And that is exactly the same as The Cop, The Gangster, and The Devil. Coming soon to you in multiplexes with an American inferior remake, probably. That's just my guess. So thanks very much for watching this very short random review of another Korean film that I like. Still haven't seen one that I dislike. There's various levels of greatness of Korean films, but I still haven't seen one that I just plain don't like. Also, I haven't seen that many. Yeah, let me know if you've seen The Cop, The Gangster and the Devil. The Thief, the Cook and his lover aren't anywhere to be seen. Yeah, let me know if you've seen it, what you thought of it, and hopefully you'll join me for more random reviews, some of which may very well be Korean. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.